Hey everybody, we're doing a kill team bat rep today. It's going to be Space Marines, my Knights of Griffin versus Tyranids. Basically the story is that Knights of Griffin have been traveling through deep space. They're searching for supplies and weapons to rearm their fleet, and they end up on this planet which looks like it's fairly desolate, but really there's a Tyranid presence there, which they're essentially the worst enemies of the Knights of Griffin because the Tyranids destroy their system. And then Tyranids hate everybody, so it's a good battle. On the planet, these Tyranids have consumed just about all life, and so they're starving, and so they've been diminished as a species similar to the Knights of Griffin, and they're looking to eat some Space Marine today. And so we're playing the kill team Heralds of Ruin rules, which is an unofficial rule set, but really good and used quite a bit, I believe, in tournaments. It's 250 points, and I will put a link in the description if anybody wants to see the rules or the lists for the Tyranids and Space Marines. And I will show each army and just talk just briefly about what they have. So for my friend's Tyranid list today, we actually have 2 units of Hormagaunts, and I'll just show you real quick that he's using some stand-in models today just because they look really cool, and this is just supposed to represent a bit of a mutation. These Hormagaunts have poison as an upgrade. We have a Lictor, which I believe is just standard. It doesn't. And then we have an Alpha Warrior, which has a bone hook,
bone sword and whiplash.
Bone sword, whiplash, and then a hook, right?
A rending claw.
A rending claw.
And flesh hook.
And a flesh hook. And then we also have 4 Gene Stealers, which have the ability to leap, right?
No.
Oh, that's just standard.
That's not the Ormagan.
Oh, okay, that's the Hormagaun. Okay. All right, and so what I've got for Knights of Griffin are, I have a basic Sergeant, Space Marine Sergeant. I've actually upgraded him to have a Stormbolter instead of a bolt pistol. I have got, because I'm the defender for Last Stand starting in the middle, I have to separate my army in 2. So the defending force that I'll be starting will be just regular Space Marines. One has an upgrade for a Flamer, and then also a Terminator. And then I also have another 5 Space Marines, just straight Space Marines with bolters, and then another Terminator, which will be coming on as reserves. Okay, I will be back right after deployment. Okay, we are here after initial deployment. The first team of Knights of Griffin are in the center. They've landed on the planet. Just becoming aware that there's a Tyranid presence here. For my friends Tyranids, we've got the Hormagaunts, the Alpha Warrior, and the 2 Gene Stealers grouped up on this part of the table. And then we have 2 Gene Stealers that have taken this corner, because essentially for this mission, you're having to stay out of the whole center for initial deployment as the attacker, and he gets to put his whole force down, and then the Lictor gets to deep strike, and so we'll not be able to do that until it is the turn of the Tyranids. Defender always gets first turn. So I will come back to you after the first turn. Okay, we're at the end of Space Marines turn 1. Because they were just about all in difficult terrain. Essentially, their movement was halved because in kill team rules it's different, and that's what you do is you just half the 6-inch movement. But they also ran for their turn afterwards, and so we've got the Sergeant coming through the back here and 2 other Space Marines here. Terminator and the Flamer Space Marine came through the door and are heading down towards this direction, and we had 2 Space Marines that went over through the top towards this direction here. So yeah, they've run this turn, and now we are at the beginning of the Tyranid turn. So we'll be right back at the end of the Tyranid turn. So we're at the end of Tyranid round 1. We had some Hormagaunts run up through the back over here to come up here. We had a Gene Stealer run here. The Gene Stealers that were up there ran in behind these buildings. They have moved through cover. One Gene Stealer ran up to this building here. The Lictor ran up to here.
Alpha Warrior.
Alpha Warrior, sorry, yeah. Lictor does not get to come in until reserves to try to deep strike. Then we had some Hormagaunts that did get a successful charge on a Terminator. Had a lot of bad rolls, and the Hormagaunts did not get any hits, but the Terminator got one hit and killed one Hormagaunt, and they are now locked in combat. And now we were going to Space Marines turn 2. Okay, we're at end of Space Marine round 2. We had 3 of our 6 members of reserves enter. We had one Terminator enter from the board there, one Terminator enter here. And this rule, because you start in the middle, you're allowed to enter from any board edge. I had one Space Marine enter there, and I had another Space Marine enter on this board edge here. We had all of these Space Marines here. Fire on all of on essentially the Gene Stealer and this Alpha Warrior, and we're not able to cause any wounds. And we had a bit of a slaughter here. This Flamer Marine basically took out 4 of the 5 Hormagaunts that were right here, and then they were essentially, the last one was killed by one of these Space Marines here. And then this Marine actually killed a Gene Stealer that was here, and this Terminator actually killed one of the 2 Gene Stealers that was here. So it was fairly brutal. The only thing we still have to do is we still have to do the melee and the assault that's happening right here. So I will come right back and just show the results of that. So we resolved this assault that we actually hadn't completed yet, and my Terminator, having slower initiative, did actually die to one of the Hormagaunts. I did roll a 1 and didn't make my save, and so these Hormagaunts are now eating Terminator meat. And we will be right back after Tyranid turn 2. We are doing a mid-round update in Tyranid turn 2 because a lot has happened. Essentially, to start out over here, one Gene Stealer did try to charge this Space Marine and got killed in Overwatch, despite being in cover, moving, when making the charge. Over here, we had 4 Hormagaunts charge the Space Marine. All 3 of these individual Marines, including the Sergeant, used their Overwatch in proximity of 3 inches to fire on them, killing one of the Hormagaunts. Now those 3 are on him. This Gene Stealer successfully charged this Space Marine who already fired Overwatch here, so was not able to Overwatch. And then over here, this Lictor successfully made a charge on this Space Marine, and this Space Marine missed in Overwatch.
It's Alpha Warrior.
Alpha Warrior, excuse me. Okay, we will be back at the end of this turn to show the result of the assaults. Okay, everybody, so end of Tyranid turn 2. These 3 Hormagaunts did end up eating a Space Marine and consolidated in front of the Sergeant. This Gene Stealer did not, and the Space Marine did not cause any wounds. And then this Alpha Warrior actually elected to use the whip, and but actually didn't make any hits. It was really, really bad roll. And then the Space Marine with his 1 attack did not actually hit back either. And so we are now going into Space Marines turn 3. And one thing I didn't mention is the Lictor actually did not make his deep strike this round as well, and that's why he's still remaining off the board. So now to Space Marines turn 3. Okay, so we're at the end of Space Marines turn 3. These Space Marines that just came in ended up each killing the 3 Hormagaunts. This Space Marine Sergeant ended up charging this Gene Stealer that was already in contact with the Space Marine from the prior round, and then we also needed to resolve a combat between the Space Marine and this Alpha Warrior. And so what essentially happened is this combat resulted in no wounds, and so they're still locked in combat. This Gene Stealer killed the Space Marine, but then and the Sergeant did not actually inflict any wounds on the Gene Stealer. And that's kind of where we're left off, because there was nothing for these 3 to do. So now we're going into Tyranids turn 3. Be right back. We are back, and it is Tyranid turn 3, and the Lictor did join the party. And so the Lictor ended up deep striking, and he deep striked it into this area here. and essentially ended up shooting his thorax hook at the Space Marine right there, who it did hit the Space Marine, but and it did he did cause a wound, but the Space Marine did save, and so that Space Marine's still alive. In the combats that have been happening over here, the Alpha Warrior did manage to kill that Space Marine, and then in this battle between the Gene Stealer and the Sergeant, basically the Gene Stealer missed, and then the Sergeant hit the Gene Stealer without causing a wound. And so now we are going into Space Marine turn 4. Okay, we are back at the end of Space Marine's turn 4. So this Terminator moved up and took a shot at the Lictor and essentially missed. This Space Marine here also took a shot, and missed. These two Space Marines and this Space Marine with the Flamer moved up this way. Between the three of these, the one Flamer and the two Space Marines, it actually caused 2 wounds on the Alpha Warrior. And then all of these Space Marines firing didn't cause any, so the Alpha Warrior is on the last wound, his last wound. And then when actually resolving this combat, essentially no wounds were caused, and so this Sergeant and this Gene Stealer have been locked in combat for a while, and they're just continuing to battle it out. Okay, come back after. And also, one thing I hadn't mentioned is, for those of you that are familiar with the kill team rules, my opponent has actually lost more than 50% of his models in the last 2 turns, and he has made his route leadership checks, because essentially you lose the game if you end up getting greater than 50% models and failing a leadership check at that point. Okay, be back after Tyranid turn 4. Okay, we are at the end of Tyranid turn 4. We'll start. The Alpha Warrior charged these 3 Space Marines and was killed. His last wound was taken away through Overwatch. No wounds unsaved, again, for this Gene Stealer and the Space Marine Sergeant, so they continue to battle it out. I did mention both the Alpha Warrior and the Lictor, which is now over here, had thrown flesh hooks at Space Marines, which did not wound. The Lictor charged the Space Marine that was in the center of the table here, and did end up killing it before it even had a chance to attack back. And now we're going into Space Marine turn 5. Okay, doing a mid-round kind of update on Space Marines turn 5. All of the 2 Space Marines and the Terminator, although the Terminator shot on the Lictor, did not get any wounds. Space Marines and the Terminator all successfully charged over here the Lictor and are now ready to have a round of assault, melee. Now here, everybody but this one lone Space Marine didn't make made his charge, so we actually have 3 Space Marines and the Sergeant now on this Gene Stealer to help the Sergeant out that just could not seal the deal up until now. And I will come back at the end of this round to update on the results. Okay, we are at the end of the Space Marine round 5. The Lictor, the leader of the Tyranids, went first and took out a Space Marine. But then what ended up happening is the other Space Marine, although missing, the Terminator actually in his charge did with his Power Fist crush the Lictor, and then with instant death basically killed it. Now over here, amazingly, no wounds were caused by all of these Space Marines and the Sergeant on the Gene Stealer. And the Gene Stealer, although not causing any wounds back, survived with 4 Space Marines on him. So this Gene Stealer will be rolling to see whether he routs in the beginning of the next round with his leadership. He's the last Tyranid on the table before the Knights of Griffin have cleared this area. And now we will go into turn 5 Tyranids to see what happens. So we've just ended Tyranid turn 5. The Gene Stealer killed the flaming Space Marine that killed so many Termagants in revenge. After the Tyranid turn, no wounds were caused on the Gene Stealer again. After Tyranid turn 5, we rolled with variable game length, and the game has ended. Despite the fact that there's only one Gene Stealer on the table, the Tyranids managed to kill just over 50% of the starting defending force. Because the Tyranids actually have less than half of their models on the table as well, it actually results in a draw for this mission. And so this game ends in a draw between the Knights of Griffin and Tyranids. This battle basically never ends up in the Knights of Griffin records ever for 2 reasons. One, to completely save face on what happened here between the Space Marines not being able to kill this Gene Stealer no matter what. The other reason is Knights of Griffin basically raid the corpses of the bodies of the Tyranids, much to the, I guess, against the orders of the Inquisition, to then have for trophies because of the hatred between Tyranids and Knights of Griffin. And so, thanks very much everybody for watching, and we will be back for another Kill Team episode in the future. Take care.